Hey panel, not the cheerleading competition across the way. Alright, I think you guys are familiar. George is one of the most well-known and well-respected men in both science fiction and social media. He has appeared in tons of TV and movies. He's been in everything from Heroes to Super Ninjas, which is currently starting its second season. He's played himself in shows like The Big Bang Theory, The Apprentice, and of course, Howard Stern. He has almost 4 million Facebook followers. In his latest book, Oh My, There Goes the Internet, is all about his experience with social media. Great book, I just read it. He's got a musical coming to Broadway called Legion. Hopefully it'll come to Kansas City soon. He actually at one point played in a show called Star Trek. Now George has a very, very famous catchphrase. Some of you may have heard before. Yeah, he says, oh my. So to welcome him out, to give him a warm Kansas City welcome, I'm going to count to 3. On the count of 3, we are all going to say, oh my. 1, 2, 3.
Oh my! You gotta get a picture.
Well, thank you for that Kansas City welcome. Everything's up to date in Kansas City. I have to begin with a little apology. I may sound a little adult, and I have been saying things that are kind of bizarre this morning, because day before yesterday, we flew in from Shanghai to Los Angeles. And then yesterday, we got a flight to Kansas City. And it is a dramatic difference from China. It is so good to hear understandable English all around. I want to thank you all of you, because, I mean, this huge hall filled with all of you. Some of you who I can pick out by the gray hair or the lack of hair. You are the original Star Trek fans. You are the ones who discovered us when our ratings were very low. We were rock bottom. And yet, because of your persistence, and because you procreate, now we have 3 and sometimes 4 generations of Star Trek fans, and Star Trek itself has grown to be middle-aged. Star Trek this year is going to be 47 years old. Wow. Isn't that something? This extraordinary phenomenon of a TV series that we began each episode by saying we're on a 5-year mission. We're mostly going on a 5-year mission. But more than the Klingons, the most destructive living beings on this planet, as it turned out, were the NBC programming agencies. They canceled us after 3 seasons. But because of your devotion, because of your persistence, and because you just wouldn't give up, Star Trek has lived, and Star Trek itself is procreated. We've had the Next Generation, and Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, and 5 generations now of Star Trek. And in 3 years, Star Trek is going to be celebrating its golden anniversary, 50 years old. Wow. And it's thanks to all of you, all the generations that you have. Bravo, bravo, thank you. We have lived long, much longer than we ever imagined, and prospered in so many wonderfully unpredictable ways. So thank you all very much for that. The thing about Star Trek, though, is Gene Roddenberry's philosophy, the key to what made Star Trek as magnetic, as charismatic, as compelling as it was back then, is the fact that he had a vision, a philosophy, that people, human beings, can continue to move to the future. Boldly go to the future, because we have confidence in our innovative genius, in our entrepreneurial capacity, and in our inventive genius, and go on to conquer new challenges. And that was possible, Gene Roddenberry felt, because he saw the Starship Enterprise as a metaphor for Starship Earth. And the strength of the Starship lay in its diversity, coming together and working in concert. Diversity of background, diversity of experience, diversity of heritage and capacity, talent, and working together. And that's what made it possible for us to overcome the many, many challenges. And so we've been able to continue on with the many generations of the fans as well. And next month, there will be another iteration of Star Trek, this time directed by that great filmmaker, J.J. Abrams. And in 3 more years, I think there should be another Star Trek movie to celebrate the 50th anniversary. Don't you think? And all this we have to thank to you, because it wouldn't have happened without your support, without your devotion. And here we are in Kansas City. I mean, we live in a fantastical world, don't we? On Star Trek, we had astounding technological innovations. We had that amazing thing called the communicator. Well, we've gone way past that now, haven't we? The things that we can do with our communicator. And the one thing we haven't been able to achieve yet, I earnestly pray for. It's that device that we call the transporter. Can you imagine? I could have made it from Shanghai to Los Angeles, or in fact Shanghai to Kansas City, without having to put in all those hours in that airplane. Just sparkle, pop out. Just a few seconds later, sparkle again, and pop in Kansas City. We don't have that yet, but we have some amazing technology now that's far surpassed what we had on Star Trek back then. And that's because we persisted as a society, as fans, but certainly as a society. We live in an exciting world. Next week I'll be speaking at a corporation called SpaceX. You've heard of SpaceX. They are doing in reality what we had dreamed of. You know, we had the space shuttle out in the International Space Station with the space shuttle going up there. But now we're going to do it as a private enterprise project. It's independent of government, going up into space. And the same, the innovator is going to be producing on a mass scale all electronic automobiles. So we won't be dependent on foreign energy sources. So that America will be perfectly the spirit of innovation that's going to be taking us forward. And I feel very privileged to have been invited to talk at SpaceX. But on so many other levels too, we are making positive advances. Keeping in mind the Star Trek philosophy of infinite diversity in infinite combinations. While signing autographs this morning, a few comic books came by. Would you believe Archie comic books that has me on the cover? I mean, I grew up with Archie comic books, you know, and I remember then it was a society that I never thought I'd be a part of. It was an all-white, wonderful society, great friends, loyal friends, having a lot of fun and some adventures. But now they are addressing issues of equality for the LGBT community. Comic books now that deal with diversity in it, and I'm on the cover with a handsome blonde guy. We are making progress as amazing as SpaceX, I think, on a social level. And so amazing things are happening. It's because people take the initiative. And in June, I'm looking forward to another amazing thing, where the Supreme Court of the United States is going to be considering the issue of marriage equality. And I'm confident that we will be fair. Amazing things are happening because we, as a society, are making it happen. I mean, the very fact that you applauded as you did when I talked about marriage equality is a dramatic sign of we, the people, doing something about it. You are fans that made Star Trek happen, but we are Americans who are making things happen in our country. And it's going to spread. We're a little bit behind some of the countries in Europe, but nevertheless, it's going to spread. Yes, there are places that are resistant, and there are going to be challenges there. But it is happening. It is happening in our time. The 21st century is going to be an exciting time. It's going to be a Star Trek century. Starting with the 50th anniversary of Star Trek, something that began in the middle of the 20th century. And I would venture to say more than half of you weren't even around then. You weren't born back in 1966. How many of you were born after 1966? There you go. Oh, well, it's a whole room. Nice and half. Aren't we amazing? We are amazing, and we can do amazing things, and we have done amazing things, and thank you all for that. Now, as jet lagged as I am, and I'm starting to lose my voice, let's get into a conversation so I can listen to some of your thoughts and respond to them. I see that there have been mics set up, so if you will gather around the two mics.
There's one mic right over here, so everybody go ahead and mic there.
Is that mic there? Oh, that's the camera.
What'd he do? He put his glasses on.
Amazing things are happening. Glasses and cameras. Let's begin with you.
Thank you, George. You came into television at a time when there weren't a lot of people who looked like you. I mean that in a kind way. What's your perspective on the changing landscape of the diversity in casting and entertainment? You started with The Twilight Zone, at least.
It is the changes that have happened has been dramatic. but we still have a long ways to go. You know, when I was a kid, when I was 5 years old, I looked up at the stars and dreamed about man traveling up there. But I looked up at the stars confined behind the barbed wire fences of U.S. internment camps. We were in prison simply because we happened to look like the people that bombed Pearl Harbor. I was a third generation American. My grandparents came from Japan. My mother was born in Sacramento. My father was a San Franciscan. I was born in Los Angeles. And yet, this country was swept up by hysteria. And that hysteria was created most effectively by the media. Movies, comic books had stereotype pictures of cold, ruthless, vicious people that looked like us. And so that made it easy for that hysteria to manifest itself in the form of internment camps. And so the fact that I could even be on television and not playing a stereotype role was a dramatic change from when I was a kid. But from that time, today now, if you have a hospital series that takes place in any major urban center in the United States, you see the diversity of America. You see Latinos, you see African Americans, you see Asian Americans, you see everybody reflected. And Asians, people that look like me, are regulars on these series. It's a dramatic difference. The Star Trek having me as a regular and Nichelle Nichols as a regular was a dramatic improvement in that time. But that was the only show that had that kind of diversity. Now we see that on so many shows on television. But storytelling is told by a major character, the hero and the heroine. And we don't have that with Asian Americans yet. There are many African American stories and many African American stars that tell the stories. Denzel Washington is a very good example of that. And so we still have a long way to go as Asian Americans. But we are making progress, and I am always an optimist, because without optimism, you don't make that progress. So Star Trek played an important part in making that advance start happening. Thank you for your question.
Hello, I live in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I want to say thank you for coming and performing with our symphony. I think it was almost a year ago.
Oh, that was a wonderful experience. The Little Rock Symphony is a wonderful symphony, and the invitation to do that piece by Schoenberg called The Survivor of Warsaw, essentially recounting the memories of a Polish Jew in the Warsaw Ghetto. Me, a Japanese American, doing that. But I think the people of Arkansas knew of my incarceration in southeastern Arkansas. And you're from Little Rock.
I currently live there, but I grew up in Kansas.
Well, we're going back to Little Rock, I think next week. CBS Sunday. How many of you watch CBS Sunday morning? That 1-hour show. They're doing a piece on my incarceration in the internment camp called Roqoo in Arkansas, because we're tying that in with our musical, Allegiance, that's going to be opening on Broadway. And as a matter of fact, CBS is here today. They may be filming right here, and your faces may pop up on that show. But we're going back to my old roller camp next week to do a film, do a bit of filming there. So it's good to be hearing from someone from Little Rock.
And I apologize for taking the mic. I do have a question about voice acting. So I'm sorry you're kind of struggling with maybe some laryngitis today. You have done a lot of voice acting in the last 10 years, I believe. How is that different from acting on stage or acting in front of a camera? And what was it like to be on Archer?
What's the last part?
What was it like to be on Archer?
Archer. Well, I am of the generation that grew up on radio drama. You know, we had what was called radio. I grew up with my ears glued to the radio, listening to stories from Cisco Kid or the Green Hornet, or even when I was even younger, Happy Theater. All that was voices, and it was amazing what the human voice and the human imagination can do. You know, the spooky thing of footsteps down a darkened alley. It's created just by, a sound man clombing coconut shells on a hard surface. And wonderful drama can be created just by the imagination and hearing. And so voice acting is something that I was raised on as a child. And to be able to recreate that in both visual as well as oral form is a wonderful challenge and fun. I'm working on a feature film now, an animated feature film called Turkeys, about 21st century turkeys who go back in time to the Pilgrim age, and they succeed in changing the diet on Thanksgiving by persuading the Pilgrims to serve, instead of turkey, to serve pizza. And the two turkeys that go back in time are played by Woody Harrelson and Owen Wilson. And the time travel device that talks is voiced by yours truly. So watch the Turkeys. It's a wonderful, fun vocal acting job. And on Saturday morning cartoons, you'll often recognize my voice as one of the many voices on Saturday. I see a head nodding. You recognize my voice. You won't recognize me today because this is a jet lag voice with a slight Kansas City chill cold.
George, I think you had them at Turkeys Go Back in Time.
Hey George, I'm a second generation Star Trek fan. Me and my dad are both huge fans of both the original series and Next Generation, so I just want to say thank you first and foremost for promoting diversity and stuff. I'm an educator and I try to promote that as well. I have students, they've never seen Star Trek, but they know who you are, and they love your message of peace and understanding, and so thank you first and foremost for that. My question is, you've done so much over your career. You've done voiceovers and acting and so many things. Have you ever been like watching a movie or like watching a TV show and you hear your voice or you see yourself and you're just like, I don't remember that at all?
You are so right. I'm watching a Saturday morning cartoon. The words sound familiar. The voice sounds like me young. Did I say that? As it turns out, I had done that. I forgot all about it. So that happens occasionally, yes. And you wear the uniform well.
Silly question and then a serious question. Silly question, do you ever feel like you're in competition with Ian McKellen on Dirty Old Man Sexy?
Ian McKellen is a wonderful Shakespearean actor, a wonderful actor without any adjectives, and I have great admiration for him. And but sexy is not an adjective I would have. Although my orientation goes that way, it's not the Ian McKellen kind of orientation.
Performing Arts magazine called Casey Stage. I'd love to do more than one question with you. But if you could talk a little bit more about Allegiance and your work there and just how that differs from working in TV and that kind of stuff.
Thank you for asking that. You gave me the opportunity for a plug here.
That was the point.
Thank you very much for that. As I said, I spent 4 years of my childhood, from 5 to 8, behind American barbed wire fences, simply because, and if, there were no charges, so you couldn't bring me to a trial. And due process is one of the core pillars of our justice system, but that disappeared. I remember one morning, my parents got us up very early and hurriedly dressed us, my younger brother and my baby sister. And my brother and I happened to be in the living room looking out the front window. And I saw 2 soldiers come marching up the driveway with bayonets on their rifle, stomped at the front porch and banged on the front door. My father answered it, and we were ordered out of our own homes at gunpoint. And so I picked up the luggage that my parents had prepared for me, and we were outside. My mother was the last to come out. She was holding my baby sister in one arm and a big duffel bag in the other. And I saw that tears were streaming down her cheek. We were taken from that home. The camps weren't built yet. So they took us to a nearby racetrack, San Benito racetrack, for those of you who know Southern California. And herded over to the horse stall. And our whole family, all 5 of us, were forced to sleep in a narrow horse stall, still smelling of horse manure, from a 2-bedroom home with a front yard and a backyard to a narrow horse stall, and guarded over by armed guards. For my parents, it was the most degrading, humiliating, and painful experience. And we were there for a couple of months, and then we were transferred to the swamps of southeastern Arkansas, a camp called Grover. This story is an important story for Americans, that our Constitution can be so fragile. And yet, in 1994, when I wrote my autobiography and went on the national book tour, I was surprised by the fact that so many people that seemed educated and otherwise well-informed, east of the Rockies, people on the West Coast knew about the internment because they saw the Japanese Americans being taken away. But east of the Rockies, people said, I had no idea something like that happened here in the United States. And for Americans to not know about that chapter of our history places the future of our country in jeopardy, because we could repeat that again. And it's so important that we founded a museum, the Japanese American National Museum in Los Angeles. The museum is located in Los Angeles, but it's a national museum. We're affiliated with the Smithsonian, and we send our exhibits all over the country. And I've gone on speaking tours to universities and corporations and governmental agencies, speaking on the internment. But the most effective way to tell that story is through drama, and particularly musical drama, because music hits the heart more profoundly, and it can compress time. Love can happen in a shorter time in a musical. And I met an extraordinarily gifted young composer lyricist from San Francisco, Roqoo. And so together we've, with Lorenzo Tione, a wonderful theatrical writer, and Mark Aceto, we put together this musical called Allegiance. It's based on the internment experience of a family, not my family. It's a fictional family. I was too young to really understand that experience as profoundly as we needed to have the characters understand. It's a story of a family that gets split in two, and the internment did fracture the Japanese American community. When Pearl Harbor happened, thousands of young Japanese Americans, men and women, rushed to their recruitment centers, like all young Americans, to volunteer to serve. But that act of patriotism was answered with a slap in the face. They were not only denied service, but they were labeled enemy non-aliens. I mean, it's pretty bad to be called an enemy when you're volunteering to serve in the military. But also to have that followed up with non-alien. What does that mean? That's a citizen defined in the negative, a non-alien. It was really an outrageous label. And to be imprisoned. But a year into imprisonment, the government realized there is a wartime manpower shortage. And how are we going to tap that potential manpower? So they came down with a loyalty questionnaire, a series of questions. But there were two questions that they were keenly interested in. Everyone over the age of 17, man or woman, immigrant or American citizen, had to respond to that. 17 or 87. It asked the two key questions. One key question asked, will you bear arms to defend the United States of America? This being asked of a 17-year-old young man as well as an 87-year-old immigrant lady. It was ridiculous. That immigrant lady was expected to carry arms to defend this country that was imprisoning her. The other question was one sentence with two opposite ideas. It asked, will you swear your loyalty to the United States of America and forswear your loyalty to the Emperor of Japan? To an American citizen, it was outrageous for the government to assume that we have a loyalty to the Emperor just because we look like this. You know, you can't forswear something that doesn't exist. They expected us to be born with a loyalty to the Emperor. So if you answered no, I don't have a loyalty to the Emperor to forswear, you were also saying no to the beginning, the first part of the same sentence. Will you swear your loyalty to the United States? If you answered yes, meaning I will swear my loyalty to the United States, you were then fessing up that you had been loyal to the Emperor of Japan and were now willing to set it aside and swear my loyalty to the United States. It was a no-win question. And the amazing thing is, thousands of young Japanese Americans bit the bullet, swallowed their pride, and answered the questions the way the government wanted us to answer, and went and fought with extraordinary courage on those bloody battlefields in Europe. In fact, when I went back to the war camp in Arkansas in 2004, I wanted to see where I spent a chunk of my childhood. And it was, I still remember that it was swampy. There were pools of water, creeks around the perimeter of the camp. I called it the jungles, but tall trees and swamp roots that went in and out of the water. It was a swamp. But as we started driving down, and they said this is the area, all I saw was miles and miles of cotton fields. They told me that they had drained the swamp and chopped off all the trees and made cotton fields. And there was no evidence of an internment camp having been there. except for the cemetery. And I went to the cemetery, and the most prominent marker there was a tall cement monument, a crumbling one. That was in memory of all the young men who went from that Arkansas internment camp to fight for this country and perished on those European battlefields. And when I started reading those names, knowing that they fought for this country that was imprisoning their own family to establish our American citizenship, I must say I lost it. I mean, tears just flowed down my cheek. I know the price that was paid for our citizenship. It was a heavy price, but we paid that price. I know how fragile my citizenship is, but I know how precious it is. And Americans have to know that things like that must never happen again. And so we put this drama together of a family where the young son goes and fights for the country, and his older sister falls in love with another group of young Japanese Americans that I consider equally heroic. They said, I'm an American and I will fight for this country, but I will fight as an American, not as an internee, leaving my family in imprisonment. I will fight for this country if I can report to my hometown Roqoo with my family back home. But I will not go from these barbed wire fences, leaving my family in imprisonment, which I consider a very principled, courageous, and heroic American position. And for that, that strong principled position, they were tried for draft evasion and put into a federal penitentiary, Fort Leavenworth. It was a time of cruel, senseless, atrocious government. We need to know how fragile our government can be. And so and the older sister falls in love with the resistor, and the family is split up. And when the younger brother comes back from the war wounded, and comes back into present time, that younger brother is played by me, and the family is ultimately brought together. It's a dramatic story, and we had our out-of-town tryout at the distinguished regional theater, the Old Globe Theater in San Diego, and we got unanimous great reviews. And by the second week, we were sold out, and we continue to be sold out. And so the Old Globe Theater gave us an extension of another week. And when we finally closed, we wound up breaking all box office and attendance records at the Old Globe. And later this month we go to New York and we have a tune-up workshop. We're going to do some more tweaking and getting it even better shape. And we'll be opening this winter in New York on the biggest and most important stage in America, on Broadway. So,
I think I speak for pretty much everyone in this room when I say that that can't come to Kansas City soon.
plan your trip to New York City. It's a wonderful vacation. Come to Broadway.
We are running short on time. I think we have time for maybe one more quick question.
First of all, it's an honor. Second of all, your dulcet tones are amazing. We love your voice acting. This is kind of funny question. Please do 50 Shades of Grey. I will not read it unless you do the reading.